Welcome to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. I'm your host for this session. I'm Sean.
And I'm Kevin.
And together we're going to talk about a unique problem that you might be having in your sales process and your sales world. This 15 minutes is designed for salespeople, sales managers, and CEOs of the company that are trying to increase their revenue and trying to be more productive in your sales processes. So let's get started.
Every salesperson, every sales manager, and every CEO has the same basic two problems. They either don't have enough leads or they don't have enough value in their leads. It's kind of the same thing, but it's different. And the solution to it, luckily, is almost exactly the same thing. You have to build a better pipeline that is more robust, has more capability, and is able to generate the income that you really need to come in. So let's talk about that a little bit. One of the ways that you're going to do that, if you're a CEO, if you're a sales manager, but maybe if you're a salesperson as well, is make sure that you are identifying the correct types of companies that you can get into easily and make a difference. This is a little bit beyond what your ideal customer profile is, but instead is about which companies can I actually get into and have a good conversation. Now, in the long term, 2-3 year time frame, you really want to focus on your ideal customer profile, those companies that are perfect for you. But in the short term, for this quarter, this month, this year, you want to focus on companies that you can have a conversation with that is a valuable conversation. What's more identifiable than just your ideal customer profile? It is, who can I have a conversation with today, tomorrow, and next Monday? And the challenge to do that is figuring out who in your territory can I actually get an introduction to? Can I get a referral to? So that they will respond to my cold outreach. Those things, those decisions have to happen right now so that you can make a difference in your sales activities for this year.
I think it's really interesting the way you phrase that, Sean. For those people who are listening to the very specific words about the easiest to access this getting in front of people, that's not too different from the way we also talk about managing pipeline. We don't manage pipeline by the biggest dollars or the closest date. We actually want to coach salespeople when they have adequate amounts of time. We actually encourage them to manage their deals and their communication priorities by the probability of closing. Let that sink in, by the probability of closing. Here's an example. If you as a salesperson or sales leader have 100 deals that could close this month, 100 deals, each deal requires 3 to 4 hours of your time. There's not enough hours in the month for you to be able to close all that business. The could close is not the metric you use. If it's an opportunity for this month, this is where we talk about dividing territories and finding additional resources, that kind of stuff. When you think about the probability of closing, you want to focus on not the dollars and not the date, but really, is the person that I'm talking to the right person? Do they have an addressable need? Can I solve their problem? Can I fulfill their need? Or do they fit my ideal client profile? Some people have policies where they don't deal with people that they don't culturally mesh with. I have policies that I won't deal in certain kinds of industries for a number of reasons, whether it be because I don't know them and can't be effective there, or because there's just some other overriding reason that gets me out of the ideal client fit for me. You as a salesperson have to decide, when you as a salesperson have the right prospect mix, who do you deal with first? And that is a stacking on moment of leadership skills for all of our listening base to take what you said, Sean, with which doors can I open the easiest, which ones can I access the easiest, which relationships can I access the easiest, and then once I have enough relationships access, which one is most likely to close this month, this week. It allows us to force rank things constantly. We don't have to wait for a sales meeting to force rank our time. When I say force rank, I mean prioritize. We don't have to wait for events. We can look and know because we got more people in the deal with that multi-threading piece, we've got the ability to say, since I have the right people mix involved with the deal on the prospect side, and they fit my ICP, and they have an addressable need that's costing them money, i.e., my value in their terms, like they measure value in their terms, the product I deliver has a value, and does it align with the value they need? When all these things come together, it's insane how fast your pipeline will grow and how fast deals will close. Let that sink in for a minute. Your pipeline and velocity and throughput will actually increase, i.e., get shorter and bigger, shorter time, bigger dollars, when you align with the right people, time, product. One of the challenges that Sean and I often see with companies is a resource challenge, whether you're $500 billion or $500,000 or $5 million. The problem is it scales. There's always a lack of resources to do anything and everything all at once. The thing we're left with is, how consistent are we? If we will be consistent every day, every week, with allocating time and headspace to prospecting, nurturing, qualifying, scoping, the propose and close activity will automagically happen. That's my favorite word, automagically. When you do all the good things well early in the deal, the latter parts are smooth as silk because we don't get surprised by the paper process, the people, Sean, I love your example about legal getting involved, finding out that legal's got to get involved, and it delays the deal for 3 weeks because so-and-so or the principal is out of the country or on another project, or they're in a end of the year training. Accountants have to do continuing education credits every year, and a lot of them are habitually doing those at the end of the year, which means they're not available to cut checks, create new vendors, and do all the things in small business that we need them to do. It's just a meshing of the right time and people to get the job done well.
Those are good points, Kevin. Thank you very much for all of that. The challenge that so many people have when they talk about their resource limitations, and you are exactly correct, Kevin, every company has resource limitations. I have worked for some of the biggest sales organizations in the world and also some of the smallest. I'm selling for myself right now, so that's the smallest I can get is me, one. The issues always are there are more things to do than there is time and resources to do them. You have to be stingy. You have to choose where to invest appropriately, and you have to constantly invest. Just like if you are listening to Jim Cramer or one of the other investment prognosticators on TV or on the radio, and they'll talk about one of the best techniques that you could possibly do is to set aside the same amount of money every week, every month, every quarter, and into your 401k or into your IRA. That same technique works for sales as well. Every quarter, every month, every week, every day, you need to set aside time that you are investing in your business. And investing in your business is trying to find out which accounts should I be working on? Which accounts should I be spending my time on? And you're not just closing all the time, but you're prospecting all the time. You're building those relationships. And you're understanding which accounts you should go after, which goes back to what I was trying to say at the beginning of the program. Where can I get in? And if I'm trying to do a deal that I want to close for this year, because my pipeline for this year is not good enough, I need to think about, well, if my ideal selling cycle is 3 months or 4 months or 6 months, okay, I can shave some time off of that if I'm really good, if I find a great customer that's ready to buy. But I probably can't close a 6-month sales cycle in 2 weeks. That's just not practical. I can take 6 months and bring it down to 5 months or 4 months. I need to find deals now that are going to affect, if I have a 6-month sales cycle, they're going to affect this summer, maybe late summer, maybe Q3. If I'm trying to affect Q1, Q1's already over from prospect standard. Now you got to get some deals done, so go and get those deals closed. But you need to figure out what you can do today to get deals into the pipeline that actually change the trajectory of your year. And if you have a 6-month sales cycle, maybe you can get it down to 5 if you get the right kind of clients. But you need to find those clients, those prospects that you can get into, you can leverage, you can go after very quickly. And a great way to do that is through referrals and through LinkedIn and through understanding who is in your community and working on that. I find it amazing when my clients today don't ask their customer, who else do you know? It's such an easy question. Who can you introduce me to? Gee, I see on LinkedIn you used to work for General Motors. I have been trying to sell to General Motors for quite some time. Do you have any friends that still work there? Can you introduce me? Now, if that person doesn't like you, they're not successful with your product, they're not going to do that. But you got to make them successful. You got to make them happy. They have to like your product. They have to like you. But once we get past that, which I assume that everybody on this podcast can do, once we get past that, now we have to work on asking for the next step, asking for that introduction, asking for assistance. Nobody's going to think less of you because you asked for a favor and said, gee, can you do me a favor and introduce me to your former boss over at General Motors? Because I'd really like to meet him. Nobody's going to think less of you. And worst thing that happens, they say no. That's the worst that can ever happen. Think about where you can build your pipeline very quickly. That's going to affect this year, this quarter, this month.
Let's give the audience something that they can take away from a tactical selling point of view. Everyone always has a challenge of when they're either selling, they either get a bunch of no's, like clusters of no's where your pipeline drains, or you get a cluster of yeses and your pipeline drains. You end up with a count of deals that get smaller or a volume of deals that evacuates from your pipeline in a number of stages. If I woke up in a professional services, software, distribution, manufacturing, sales role tomorrow, there's a few things that I would do specifically. Number one, I would start, regardless of industry, I would start by looking at, hey, who is my ideal persona at my ideal client? And I'd say, in my network, who is talking to them? If I'm not a heavy LinkedIn user, I probably am somebody who goes to trade shows. When I go to trade shows, who are those people talking to my best type of prospect? And I'm going to create a list, whether it's on LinkedIn, on email, something. I'm going to flag those names of people who are talking to the people that I need to sell to. Those are my influence networks. Those are what will become my referral partner, my trusted network. Trusted network. Beyond that, who are my ideal prospect, that persona? Who do they talk to? If they're in purchasing, where do they get their information? Are they paying attention to economists? What value can I bring to their economists' research view? Are they also talking to IT about best practices and new solutions for how they do or execute their job? I'm looking for ways to connect to people with value, not just, hey, would you be interested in talking about product feature? Nobody cares. Nobody cares about product plus feature. People really care about problem plus easy solution. I didn't say cheap. I didn't say short term. I said problem plus easy solution. We have to be thinking about who's talking and influencing our potential prospects. If I'm waking up in any of those vertical shoes tomorrow, I'm also thinking about content. What am I writing about that helps solve a problem where I am the natural solution for them? If I'm selling a manufactured steel product, where is that application? What problem does that solve? If it's just square tube for square gaps or gaps in walls, I got to figure out why the gap got there. What happens after the gap is filled? What doesn't happen? What happens if the gap doesn't get filled? And talk about, hey, let's identify gaps if you're filling gaps in walls with steel. If you're talking about software, if you're selling software, you're probably talking about not what your software does. This is not feature, buy from me, look at me. This is not a beauty contest. When you're selling software, you're talking about the problems they have and what the future could look like if that problem was solved. These are all things that we have thought about and talked about, but being diligent is what creates the separation between a salesperson that gets paid a base salary and a salesperson who makes a fat commission check. And for the sales organizations that are trying to grow, you want the latter.
I totally agree, Kevin. This is fantastic. I hope that everybody has learned a lot from this episode about how to fill your pipeline effectively, efficiently, because this is what we have to do as salespeople. This is what we have to do as sales managers. And this is what we have to do as CEOs of small companies. And I'm going to tell you right now that if you are a sales manager and you have a team of 3, 4, 10 people that you're trying to help be successful, Your job is to give them ideas, give them suggestions, give them coaching on how they can get better at filling that pipeline. Because the more pipeline that you have, the more life is great. The biggest problem most organizations had, we started off this episode by saying this, is there's not enough pipeline. The more pipeline you have, the better life is if you're in sales.
And that's a wrap. Thanks again for joining Kevin and Sean on Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. Tune in every Tuesday, or when our podcast drops every Tuesday at 4:30, wherever you consume your podcast. And don't miss our monthly CEO workshop, where we unpack some of the big CEO questions facing your business. Until next time, we're looking forward to seeing you. Happy selling.